what we've been seeing happening across the United States of America is that these states know that Trump is starting to catch steam. And despite the fact that we may have a woman here or two, a woman here or there or two, that say that I don't care what happened, I'm going to continue to vote for Biden, even if he leave our borders open, even if he don't do nothing for us, even if he ruin the economy, even if he give a whole bunch of money over to Ukraine. I'm going to vote for Biden regardless. And again, I care, but I will respect you regardless of who you vote for when you make an informed decision, whether you vote for the blue side or you vote for the red side. I respect the democratic process. I do. I think that that's what makes us great as a country. That's what makes us great as a people. Our ability to be able to disagree or come together on one issue and maybe continue to disagree on another one. I respect you. But when you participate in the process, I respect you. But what I can't respect and what I don't respect is these people trying to finesse us and remove candidates off the ballot just so they can try to prevent them from continuing to, or they can try to prevent us from choosing. We should have the choice. It should not be up to them and these crooked politicians or these crooked legislators to try to remove him off the ballot. But you know one thing that I noticed about Michigan, the Pistons might be bad, but our Supreme Court made sure that they kept Trump on the ballot. Pistons might be bad, but our Supreme Court didn't do what Colorado did. They didn't do what California doing. They didn't do what all of these other states is doing. Let me bring you up to speed on what's going on over here in Michigan, ladies and gentlemen.
Some breaking news just into us. The Michigan Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump will remain on the Republican primary ballot.
I'm going to read those super chats shortly. Big Hertification, Brock, and everybody that contributes into the platform. I appreciate you. Let me continue with the show. Right after this, I'm reading y'all super chats.
Obviously, a significant decision here. People have been waiting to see, given the news last week that the Colorado Supreme Court, in a 4-3 vote, voted that he should not appear on the Republican primary ballot. So he will be on that Michigan ballot. Jonathan Lemire, the Supreme Court upholding an appeals court decision that previously had found the former president could appear on the ballot. This, of course, all raised because of his role in attempting to.
And the reason why this is significant in places like Michigan and Florida, maybe not so much over in California, because California is a blue state, and we already know that California is going straight over into the blue. But again, it's the democratic process, and you should give people the choice to choose for themselves. But Michigan is a swing state, and so it's important for swing states like Michigan to be able to make their own choice as to who they want for president of the United States of America.
Overturn the 2020 presidential election. We also got these tapes just last week from the Detroit News that showed Donald Trump on the phone trying to influence fake electors and everything he did to meddle in that election in Michigan. But now the Michigan State Supreme Court, again, just moments ago, ruling that he will, in fact, be on the Republican primary ballot.
And let's be clear, he did try to interfere and overturn the election.
Listen, when y'all look at this, when y'all see these, and I try to be balanced. I don't want to just get sources from Fox or CBS or, I try to get some CNN, some MSNBC in there too, because I want to get it from both sides, and I want to see how disingenuous the person or the pundits that are on the screen are being with regard to these issues. But you got to take it with a grain of salt, and you got to be able to read between the lines before they even speak to the facts. And this is what we don't want from our news. When you're reporting the news, just report the news. Give your context and your opinion afterwards. But tell us what happened, and then give us your personal opinion that has nothing to do with what the Supreme Court did over in Michigan. We know you're biased. We know you feel a certain way. We don't want to hear that. We want to hear what happened, and then you can give your opinion afterwards.
Results, but legal scholars have been split as to whether or not that should keep him from these ballots here. And we're seeing that now play out in the states. Colorado at least for now, has him off the ballot. Now Michigan says he can stay on. And we know the Supreme Court likely will end up with that Colorado case at some point down the road. But, whether or not this holds, the politics of this are also very, very tricky. There are some Democrats who say, look, Trump should be held accountable for inspiring an insurrection. That's what the amendment is about to the Constitution.
He should be held accountable for words mean things. Inspiring an insurrection. Not that he led it, not that he'd been convicted of it. None of that. He should be held accountable for inspiring an insurrection.
Therefore, he shouldn't be able to be in office. He shouldn't be on the ballot. But other Democrats think this is just simply playing into Trump's hands. And this seems like a legal bank shot that actually makes him only politically stronger. And it fuels his arguments, as nonsensical as they are, that the deep state is trying to hold him down. And what have we seen since the Colorado case? All of these Republicans, including those who are trying to beat him in the Republican primaries, rallying to his defense. So he is.
And is making him stronger. What these idiots in office are not realizing is the more that you bring visibility to your incompetence and that you try to finesse the system to keep him off the ballot, the more we're like, oh, okay. So they trying to cheat us. So you can't beat us fair and square. You can't beat him fair and square. Now you want to keep him off the ballot. And again, I respect somebody participating in the democratic process and voting for who they feel is best for the job. That is just American. But what I don't respect, regardless of where you stand on the aisle, is when you try to cheat your way to the top and you try to remove the option from the American people from voting for who they feel is best for the job. I don't respect you. And they're making him stronger. They're making him bigger. They giving him bigger wings. They're giving him bigger wings. They basically making him a super president now. The best thing that I think could have ever happened, honestly, is for us to realize the error of our ways. And now we realize how bad it really was, because you can't say now, well, what if we'd had Biden, he would have fixed the economy. We seen what's happening. We see our borders being left open. And the best thing I believe that could have happened is for people to deal with and have to sit in their own medicine. When you got to sit in your own poop, when you over there in Chicago and you got all of these migrants in there because y'all only wanted to show out and turn out to a 5% voter turnout rate for somebody that's 10 times worse than Lori Harvey, now you got to deal with that. You voted for Eric Adams. Now you got to deal with that. And see, when we get somebody and they don't do well, we just be like, oh man, we just messed up. But when you get somebody, it's always somebody else's fault.
Only grown stronger from that. I think there are some Democrats, frankly, who probably are breathing a sigh of relief that he won't be kicked off at least this other state's ballot.
Yeah, Peter Baker, Donald Trump objectively meddled in the Michigan election in 2020. It's all.
See how they got to keep saying it in order to deflect from the real issue?
On tape. We know that to be true, but what the court has said here and in other places is this is a political issue. This is not one for the courts to decide. The Colorado Supreme Court disagreed in that 4-3 vote. But as Jonathan said, Colorado alone has given Donald Trump, and even some of his opponents like Chris Christie have said, this just gives him fuel to say, look, they're trying to stop us by these other means because they can't stop you from voting for me. So do you think we'll see this when it hits the Supreme Court, and whenever that is, and likely to the Colorado ruling go all the way to the United States Supreme Court? How is this going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, this just emphasizes why the Supreme Court is likely to take it up, right? You can't have different interpretations of the federal Constitution in different states without, some serious credibility issues. Why would the Constitution mean one thing in Colorado and mean another thing in Michigan? That's why people look to the Supreme Court to tell us what the Constitution means here. What they're talking about, of course, is the 14th Amendment. This was put in after the Civil War. It was intended to mean Confederates, high-level Confederates couldn't take office afterwards. It's being applied apply in this case because it doesn't have a specific Confederate, labeling. It applies to any insurrection. And then people want the Supreme Court to say, okay, does this suit this particular case? And there are a number of questions here. It's not just the question of whether or not Donald Trump interfered in the election. It's for whether he led an insurrection. There are some people who disagree about that, whether that word applies in this case. He hasn't been charged with insurrection, remember, by Jack Smith. He's been charged.
So if he hasn't been charged with insurrection, and you're trying to base this off of a law that has no application to it that came about, and the context matters. And this is why it's not just about the laws that's written, it's our interpretation of the law. It's not just the laws that's written, it's the interpretation of it. Because if you leave it too broad, then you can start to apply it to things that's not even relevant as to why it came about in the first place. Your interpretation of it, he has not, you cannot say that he's done something that he has not been convicted of, A. And we are not in Rome. Maybe we are in Rome. Maybe mob rules. Maybe the court of public opinion is the only thing that matters. But this just shows that it's not about the truth. It's only about how we feel about a person. And then mob rules, and we can start to remove people off of ballots and become undemocratic as though we Kim Jong-un. So they're going to give you the choice that they want you to have, not allow for you to be able to pick it for yourself. Okay.
With a number of other crimes, very serious crimes that could put him in prison if he's convicted, but he did not use insurrection as one of those charges. A lot of people say that doesn't matter. He was impeached for insurrection, even though not convicted by the Senate. There are other questions the Supreme Court has to address. Is this need for Congress to implement legislation to put that amendment into effect? There's some people who argue that that's in fact the case, and that may be one way the Supreme Court chooses to rule on this rather than get to the question of whether or not Trump committed insurrection or not. So there's a lot of different legal questions involved. The political questions that you and Jonathan just talked about are actually probably just as significant, right? What does this tell the electorate? Does this play into his hands by saying, see, they don't want you, the voters, to have a chance to decide this election? And a lot of Democrats think that Donald Trump is better beaten at the ballot box than beaten through the court system, because then it removes that sort of legitimacy that he's seeking from a new vote electing him to the presidency.
And it's unfortunate, but I'm very glad, even though I don't like our governor, I don't like the Michigan governor. I'm not even going to cap. I'm not a fan of the Michigan governor, but I support the Michigan governor because the Michigan governor was elected by the people fair and square. And during the next election, I'll evaluate the candidates and I'll pick from there. But the fact that the Michigan Supreme Court upheld and left Colorado by themselves, and their disrespect of our democratic process of being able to get people elected based off of the vote of the people, I'm glad that Michigan did that, even though the Pistons is losing. The Pistons may be losing. The Pistons may be setting a record. I'm deciding that I don't want to go to the games no more. But I'm very, very thankful that the Michigan decided to keep Trump on the ballot.